Hello and welcome to this update video from the Cha0s farm. In this update video we gonna continue the building process of our new greenhouse, which we make ready for the winter season in it. And we also started our potato harvest, talk a little bit about that and generally give you a little bit insight of the current situation, what we are harvesting. Enjoy! Our expectation towards our potato harvest were pretty low, as we already had opened up one of the beds in the start of August and the harvest was pretty bad, less than 4 kilograms in one bed. So we were pretty devastated when we started, but pleasantly surprised when we found out that there were way more potatoes in it than we expected. The total harvest of those two beds, which are 10 meters long, was close to 60 kilograms and we were very pleased. Although some have to be sorted out as they had bite marks from mice. Beside of that, we were very pleasantly surprised. And here's somewhat of a bird's eye perspective on our Friday harvests. We pre-harvest a little bit on Thursdays and then make the big harvest on Fridays for our vegetable boxes and for our own usage. Although everything had been a little bit delayed due to the very hot June and the wet and cold July, we're pretty pleased with the harvest so far that we are getting at the moment, as it's between 100 and 140 kilograms a week. And now for some nice pictures of our harvest. One of the veggies which don't stop surprising us are our beans. We harvest between 10 and 16 kilograms a week. Already a couple of months ago we built our small new greenhouse. This is specially dedicated to our young plants, as we had to get them out of our young plant room and out of the other glass house or greenhouse. We have this place, have been using this place for the young plants to make them more suitable to the sun and the sunlight, which worked pretty nice. The layout could be a little bit adjusted and is one of the feared fall projects which we have to tackle. But for now we have to make the enclosure, meaning walls, roof and door, especially the roof has to be a little bit adjusted. Here you can see the roof windows which we're aiming to build in this part. Like every other project we built, this project starts out with the rough cut of the beams, which we need for the windows. Next step is planing one side and cutting them into stripes to make a laminated beam, which will serve for those frames. The reason why we are using laminated frames is that these are more or less likely to warp, especially in moisture conditions, which we will have with the weather outside. Therefore, this will be laminated and not just pure wood beams. And as mentioned, two of the sides will be put into a right angle with each other, which is called planing, which makes it easier to later on rip them apart into stripes, which are most likely parallel to each other, or the sides of those stripes are parallel to each other. Here I'm cutting those beams into stripes as mentioned and make good use of our big table saw and the big rib plate that we have for that particular case. And as you have seen this already in the videos where we made the beams for the base construction of the greenhouse, just a fast forward, here we are gluing up those beams again for the frame. As they have to lay flat, we try to make them lay flat with those small plates underneath them, so that they don't curve during the glue up process in one or the other direction, as the weight of the beams is more than enough to bend them a little bit. Off camera I planed them again after the glue up and put them to the thickness that they should have. After that I started the process of cutting notches into them, as this is the joinery I'm going for, half overlapping joint. And there were a lot of notches to cut, which took quite some time, but we ended up with this very nice, beautiful 3D puzzle. And I hope that this is the joinery which suits it well. It should. At least I hope so. And now to the fun part, breaking out those small cuts which are left over in the middle of the beams. These are the moments which I do really enjoy a lot. After cutting stripes and beams, which is a lot of the time the work that we do, and planing them and doing all this prep work, having the time to flash cut with a just sharp chisel, those joineries are pretty neat and nice moments in the whole process. So some seconds of pure enjoyment of woodworking sound. And this was pretty much the rest of the day. Cutting those notches, testing if the pieces that should intend there fit. And I left them a little bit thicker than intended so that I can later on use a hand planer to get them to the same height as the other part, which I do like to do that way. Otherwise, if they're too shallow, you cannot really properly do anything. I used some screws to hold them in place. They are not glued up yet, but I wanted to check the angles and if the panel fits. Therefore, I just used those wood screws. Later on, they will be replaced once the frame is glued together. Here I'm checking the diagonal of the frame, which should give me the information if the frame is square within itself. And it was not too bad. I think it was 2 millimeters off, which can be easily corrected when I'm doing the final glue up. And for that stage, or for that position that I'm aiming for, this is good enough. Off camera, I cut some grooves into the frames. This is where the panels would sit later on. Here I'm cleaning them up with a chisel. I cut them with the table saw, so they're not super clean, but it's way faster than for those few pieces adjusting the trimmer or a router. So I was just fastly doing it on the table saw, which at least is my preferred. And after one final test, everything was set for the glue up. As I don't have any footage of the glue up actually, because I think I lost it, you just see me as a representation of this screwing together the frame here. But basically, you can imagine what it's gonna look like. Some glue, some clamps, some other little tools that I need, a lot of swearing because I forgot some stuff in between, and that's it. After the glue up, I used the hand planer and made all the surfaces plane to each other, cut away the rest of the glue, and then used the sanding machine to sand over all the corners, which formerly have been used by router bits to round them over, and then hand sanded all the parts as well, which is not my favorite job, but has to be done. Short use of the air compressor gets rid of all the sawdust. And then we are ready for the first layer of the paint that we're actually going to use on this. It's going to be the same white as the greenhouse already has. It's a base foundation white, which is acrylic based, but I think water is the thinner that is used in this paint, so it doesn't really smell at all. You can work without a respirator and it's pretty pleasant, even if the workshop is closed, so you don't get a headache or so on. I do like this product as it dries rather fast and is not smelly as mentioned. The first layer will nearly be sanded off all the way, that's why we use 3 layers of paint. The next thing we're gonna build is the covering stripes between the sheets where there is no window. When the dust extraction is running, we always have a little beatbox on our window. As in this process, we have to cut a very delicate groove. Cutter helps me out of pressing the wood to the right position to keep it on the guard, which is next to the blade. And it's easier to focus on one side for each of us. At least for me, I do like to have a second person when I'm doing stuff like that, because I have the feeling it gets way more accurate. And this is what the profile of this stripe is gonna look. To the left and right later on there's gonna be a panel. Next we sand down all the curvatures, and I use a hand planer to make get rid of all the sharp edges to have them soften out. And after the first layer of paint, this is what those pieces look like. And this repeated itself quite often, as they also got 3 base layers of the white color. The first one nearly sanded down after the first sanding, and then another 2 which make it really cover up the wood structure with the white paint. And later on there is going to be 3 layers of clear coat as well, as these will be quite extensively rained on and sun will shine on them to have the best coverage on them. That's why we do this. As each layer took longer and longer to dry, this was quite a time-consuming process. And over the next days, we give it one coat after the other. And that was basically it, how far we came with this project in the last couple of weeks. So far I'm pretty pleased, and I hope in the next couple of weeks we can finish this particular project. And I think after 3 days we were finished with all the layers of the parts for the roof. And that's actually also the status of the whole construction as we end this video. That's it for this week's video. I just leave you be with close to 3 minutes of us harvesting in the market garden. So it's just to enjoy and watch it if you like to. Otherwise, have a good day, enjoy it, and see you soon. Bye.